the third Sunday of Advent, Gaudete Sunday. It's the plural imperative, if you want to know the Latin of it. Rejoice, which comes from the very first words of the entrance hymn. Rejoice always, again I say rejoice. In most Catholic churches, the vestments would be rose. We're in a poor Jesuit community church. We don't have rose. We don't do rose. We do purple. So that's what we have to deal with. We're dealing with a wonderful chapter in John's Gospel. The opening reading is very good too. It's about the prophet saying, "This is who I am. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me." So it's a joyful celebration of a vocation, of a calling that he has heard from God. You might remember it. It's the verses that Jesus uses in the 4th chapter of Luke's Gospel when he goes into the synagogue and he unrolls the scroll and he reads those very verses from chapter 61 of Isaiah. But to the Gospel, you would know what a overture is or a prelude. The Gospel today is some verses scattered through what they call the prologue, the overture, the prelude. The first 19 verses of John's Gospel, and like an overture, it's stating certain themes, music, introducing us, and then later on in the play, they'll sing a whole song that was hinted at the prologue, at the preludes. So we hear a prelude. You would recognize it because it starts, we don't hear it today, but John's Gospel starts, in the beginning. In the beginning was the Word. And later on in the Gospel it says, and the Word was made flesh. It's a very comforting chapter. There is, though, in the reading today, there is 3 references to light, which we'll come back to. In the development of Christianity, or the following of Jesus, really, John's Gospel, as you know, was written maybe 50 years, let's say, after the Synoptics, after Matthew, Mark, and Luke. A tradition had developed that maybe John was the Christ. He was the light. And there were factions that taught that and lived that. That John lived a very holy life in the desert, so he must have been the Christ. So at the very beginning, John, writing, the gospel writer John, says about John the Baptist that he testifies to the light. He is not the light, but testifies to the light. And in that, the light will illumine everyone. And in John's Gospel, as you may know, light becomes a very good theme because it was hinted at 3 times in the prologue. So Jesus says, I am the light. And in John's Gospel, good things happen in the light time. Bad things happen at night. You may remember that when Judas betrayed Jesus, he left the upper room and it was night. Whoa, dramatic. And Jesus rose at dawn and he appeared to the apostles on the shore just as day was breaking. So light and dark is a very big theme in John's Gospel. So John the Baptist is proclaiming that he is testifying, witnessing, pointing out. And a group of Levites and priests come out to his baptismal place. And he said, And they ask him, okay, we're having a little inquiry here. A little information session. Are you the Christ? No. Are you Elijah? No. Are you one of the great prophets? No. Then who are you? What's your function? And John says, you may think I am this or that, but I am pointing out, I am not the light, but I am pointing to the light. And the light will tell you who you are. And then, of course, more religious leaders come out. And they say, who are you? You know, there's a funny thing in English language, and maybe you know people whom you know will say, it's a question, but it's a statement. Don't you think, that's a question, don't you think that this and this and this and this? They're making a statement of what they believe and asking you, of course you believe what I'm going to tell you. But it's a question. And the Pharisees are doing that. What they're doing is, so the Pharisees are having a little informational mix-up. Technical difficulties were in their mind. And they were asking questions that wanted the answer. They were only open to their answer. They wanted to make sure that he wasn't the Christ. And then the gospel today ends with that he's just saying, as the scripture said, and we heard it in last Sunday's gospel, the one who is coming after me, I baptize with water, but he's coming whose sandal I am not worthy to untie. So what I'm moved to just share is religious questions. Mainly what I'd say is never argue religion. Because argument is about ideas. And God so loved the world that he sent a person, not an idea, not a concept, not something about which to be argued, but either to receive or not. And that's the difficulty. Because our minds are set up to understand things. And we can't understand persons. They're beyond understanding. Everyone is a mystery. What the Pharisees wanted, and the priests and the Levites, was how can they have a Christ and still be in charge and still be dominating the Christ? And John escaped them. He said, you want ideas? There's one coming after me who will invite you to a relationship, something tender, something kind, something more of the heart than the head, something of faith and trust and light, not intellectual light, not an idea light. So these last days of Advent, we're coming into the last full week, do you want answers? Because answers only result in more questions. Or do you want a person of mystery who invites you to the mystery of your life, responding to the mystery of the Word made flesh, the Word come as light, the Word come as comfort.